The story begins at a skate park, where a young skater performs several risky tricks while everyone watches. But suddenly another boy appears and crashes into her. The accident reveals that the skilled skater is actually a girl. What surprises everyone the most are her cat ears. The crowd immediately starts chasing her to record her, so she runs away. The girl's name is Claudine, and shortly afterward, she arrives home by jumping through a window. There, she is surprised to discover that her father, Apollo, has prepared a birthday cake for her. Claudine also tells him that she has received an acceptance letter from Monster High, an exclusive school for pure-blooded monsters. However, there is one small problem. Claudine is a hybrid because her father is human. After celebrating her birthday, Claudine and her father head to the school. During the night, they arrive at a dark forest and Claudine thinks they are lost. But just as they begin to worry, a portal appears in front of them. Before saying goodbye, Apollo warns his daughter to keep her human heritage a secret, because Monster High does not accept students with human ancestry. Claudine walks through the portal and finds herself standing in front of a massive castle. At that moment, the tower bell begins to ring, making it clear that she has just arrived late for her first day of school. When she enters, Claudine discovers that the school is filled with monstrous students. There, she meets Frankie, a girl created in a laboratory, Cleo, a rather conceited student, and Laguna, a girl with sharp teeth and claws. There is also Heath, who can make flames come out of his head, and Deuce, a boy who has snakes instead of hair. Even the principal has a rather unusual ability, as she can separate her head from the rest of her body. While Claudine tries to find her way around the school, the principal approaches her, clearly upset because someone is practicing unauthorized magic inside the building. Later, Claudine looks for her room and asks Gulia, a strange green-skinned student, for help. Gulia explains that the school is alive and can even answer some questions. Suddenly, a wall opens, revealing a hallway that leads directly to a room made specifically for Claudine. There, Claudine gets to know Frankie better. Frankie tells her that she has only been alive for 15 days because her parents created her in a laboratory. While they are talking, Frankie accidentally hits one of her fingers, and it comes off her hand as if nothing had happened. Claudine also discovers that there is another student in the room. Her name is Draculora, a vampire who sleeps in a coffin and is quite strict. She immediately establishes several rules for her roommates, making it clear that no one is allowed to enter her side of the room. The next day, the first day of classes begins. Claudine and Frankie find their lockers, which are shaped like coffins. Meanwhile, Cleo approaches her ex-boyfriend, Deuce, to talk to him, but he no longer seems interested in her. After insulting the two girls, Cleo realizes that Deuce keeps looking at Claudine. So the new student decides to approach him and talk to him. Shortly afterward, Claudine is called to the principal's office over the school intercom. When she arrives, she discovers that the principal is organizing an annual dinner for Monster High's most important sponsors. Because of this, she wants Claudine to be the student ambassador and give a speech about her life and family. But when the principal asks her about her ancestors, Claudine becomes nervous, and her claws begin to shrink until they look human. Even so, she agrees to take part in the dinner, although she later runs to the bathroom completely frightened. There, she finds Draculora performing some kind of magic over a toilet. Claudine goes into a stall to calm herself down, and after a few moments, her claws grow back. Without understanding what just happened, Claudine runs out of the bathroom without noticing a message written on the wall: "Expel the enemy." Meanwhile, Abby and Heath toss a human foot back and forth as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Nearby, Claudine asks Frankie if a monster can turn into a human. After searching through all the information stored in her brain, Frankie explains that throughout history, some half-monster teenagers have temporarily turned into humans when experiencing intense emotions, such as fear or anger. Later in class, Professor Komos tries to teach a boring history lesson. After asking the students several questions, they eventually explain that Monster High was built to be a safe place for all monsters. As Professor Komos continues asking questions, Frankie becomes so excited while answering one of them that she stretches out her arm, causing her own hand to come off. As if nothing happened, the professor continues with the lesson and asks what the greatest threat to monsters is. Cleo answers that it is humans. According to her, this is why Monster High only accepts pure-blooded students. But Claudine disagrees. The werewolf girl insists that not all humans are evil. After hearing this, Professor Komos decides to tell the class the story of Mr. Hyde, a half-human, half-monster who tried to hide his true nature. However, when his secret was revealed, both monsters and humans rejected him. Eventually, a group of humans hunted him down and ended his life. When class ends, Claudine approaches the professor to ask him about his research on Mr. Hyde. Cleo tries to interrupt the conversation, but the professor ignores her and continues talking to Claudine. Komos explains that Hyde was extremely intelligent and probably managed to eliminate his human side. To do so, he used a secret laboratory where he prepared different potions. However, he was eventually expelled from Monster High. The professor believes that the laboratory could still be hidden somewhere inside the school. To find it, Claudine must look for a secret symbol made up of 2 crossed hands. The werewolf girl begins searching in a study room and finds several books with the same symbol. But while she is going through the notes, someone activates some of the room's chemical equipment to scare her. The scare is so intense that Claudine starts transforming again. Her hands and teeth regain their human appearance, while her hair loses its color and her ears begin to shrink. Then Frankie suddenly appears from behind a shelf and scares her again. After realizing what is happening, she decides to help her friend find the secret formula. As the girls examine the notebooks, they discover that the notes are written in code. After deciphering part of the information, they find a set of coordinates that leads them to the school cemetery. Meanwhile, the principal discovers the message reading "Expel the enemy," written in blood on one of the hallways. Seeing it makes her even angrier. Elsewhere, Claudine runs into Deuce in one of the hallways. The boy offers to help her with her speech for the dinner, but the situation makes Claudine so nervous that she worries she might transform back into a human. Because of this, she runs away before Deuce can realize what is happening. Later, Cleo enters several students' rooms to tell them that Claudine has no chance with Deuce. However, she does not realize that Draculaura is listening to everything. The vampire casts a spell, and suddenly a huge pimple appears on Cleo's face. After curfew, Claudine and Frankie follow Professor Komos' instructions and arrive at the entrance to the cemetery. But the gate is locked. Since they cannot find another way in, Claudine jumps over to the other side and pulls a lever to open the gate from inside, allowing Frankie to enter as well. As they move forward, Ghoulia suddenly emerges from beneath the ground. The student complains about the noise they are making because the cemetery is considered their territory. The girls continue until they reach an ancient tomb. The problem is that there is no visible lock on the entrance. However, Claudine notices a strange smell and decides to follow it. This leads her to Draculaura, who is performing a spell in front of a cauldron while her body begins to levitate. The vampire asks her roommates not to reveal her secret, since vampires and witches have been enemies for a long time. Because of this, her family would be furious if they discovered that she was practicing magic. Claudine decides to reveal her own secret as well. Draculaura then examines the tomb and discovers that the entrance has a system that can be opened using a handprint. Afterward, Draculaura looks through her spellbook and finds a spell called Gathered Mist, which could help her open the tomb's door. The problem is that the spell is far too advanced for her level, but her roommates encourage her and decide to help her practice. After several attempts, the 3 girls leave the cemetery without realizing that someone appears at the entrance and hides the tomb again. Later, the friends go over the list of ingredients needed to perform the spell. One of them is an ogre bone, one of the most difficult materials to obtain. However, the principal owns a cup made from that material. Later, the girls wait for the principal to leave her office. As soon as they get the chance, Claudine goes inside and quickly finds the ogre bone cup. But just as she picks it up, she hears something approaching. It is a huge magical clock that begins moving around the room. Claudine hides and starts scraping the sides of the cup to collect some of the rare material. Meanwhile, Frankie stays outside to distract the principal. When the woman returns, Frankie starts telling her all kinds of stories to keep her from entering the office. At that moment, Cleo appears with some documents for the principal. The woman asks her to leave the folder inside the office, so Draculaura tries to stop her but cannot. The vampire only has enough time to warn Claudine, who quickly hides. Draculaura then casts a spell and turns Claudine into a copy of the principal. The spell works so well that Claudine's head even separates from her body. Shortly afterward, Cleo enters the office and gets a huge shock when she discovers that the real principal is already there. Claudine takes advantage of the confusion to scold Cleo and tell her that she should treat the other students better. But before the 3 girls can leave, the principal asks Claudine how the dinner speech is coming along. At that moment, Claudine remembers that she completely forgot to prepare it. Later, Draculaura receives a call from her father through an old painting. He pressures her to improve her grades. After the call ends, the young vampire confesses to Claudine that she needs to tell her family the truth, even though vampires and witches are enemies. Claudine also realizes that she must reveal her own secret to avoid being expelled from the school. The next day, biology class is canceled because some students have stolen several body parts that were supposed to be used for the lesson. Meanwhile, the girls discover that the next ingredient they need is snake venom. Frankie explains that there is only one snake at Monster High capable of producing it, but it is a massive creature that can bite someone's head off if anyone gets too close. Since getting the venom seems impossible, Claudine comes up with an idea. During a walk through the woods, the werewolf girl approaches Deuce and asks if she can see his snakes. The young man warns her that they can be dangerous, but Claudine takes advantage of a moment when he is distracted to pull out a small jar and try to collect some venom. One of the snakes suddenly comes out of Deuce's cap. At Claudine's request, Deuce takes off his glasses, although he keeps his eyes closed so he does not turn her to stone. Claudine tries to catch the snake with a pair of tweezers, but she cannot do it. After a brief misunderstanding, she finally admits to Deuce that she was actually trying to collect his venom. Deuce then explains that she must not look directly into the snake's eyes and takes off his cap to help her. Later, Claudine, Frankie, and Draculaura return to the cemetery. There, her two friends tell Claudine that Deuce is in love with her. Even Ghoulia seems to agree with them. In front of the tomb, the three girls mix all the ingredients. Draculaura casts the spell, and a bright green mist reaches the tomb's door. But nothing happens. The vampire tries a second time, but the door still does not move. This causes Draculaura to begin doubting her own abilities. When they return to the school, they find the principal, Professor Komos, and Cleo waiting for them. The principal punishes them for being outside after curfew. She also accuses Draculaura of practicing witchcraft and threatens to tell her father. This makes it clear that someone has revealed the young vampire's secret. Suddenly, the lights go out. Screams can be heard in the hallways, and a statue begins to move, nearly falling on Cleo. Claudine quickly runs to save her and manages to pull her out of the way just in time. After the students leave the hallway, the principal confesses to Professor Komos that there is a half-human monster inside Monster High. When Claudine returns to her room, she apologizes to Draculaura, thinking that everything happening at the school is her fault. That night, while Frankie and Draculaura are fast asleep, Claudine begins packing her things so she can leave. However, the next morning, Draculaura appears in the form of a flying bat and finds her before she can leave. Even so, Claudine still feels guilty and becomes so nervous that she transforms back into a human. She tries to escape but ends up falling to the ground. When she sees the imprint of her human hand in the clay, she realizes something important. It is the key that can open the tomb's door. The three friends return to the school and find everyone getting ready for the annual dinner. At that moment, Claudine remembers that she still has not prepared her speech. But instead of going to the ceremony, she decides to head to the cemetery. In front of the tomb, she manages to control her transformation and turns only her hand into a human hand. When she places it on the lock, the door opens. Inside, they find an ancient tomb. Frankie explains that it belongs to an ancient monster. Beneath the statue's lens, the girls discover a button with a strange symbol. When they press it, a secret passage opens. The three girls quickly make their way down and discover a massive cave filled with laboratory equipment. While Frankie examines the strange substances on the tables, Claudine finds the secret formula created by the half-human, half-monster. But as she thinks about what will happen if she drinks the potion, she remembers her father, Apollo. If she removes her human side, she could also erase everything connected to him. Suddenly, Professor Komos appears and tells her that she should not drink the potion. He also knows what it means to have human ancestry, so he asks her to hand over the elixir. Claudine agrees and Komos immediately drinks the potion. He then reveals that he is the son of the famous hybrid. The man explains that he found his father's journals, but was unable to decipher the codes on his own. That is why he waited for the students to help him. He also needed Claudine's transformation to open the tomb's lock, but his goal is not to become a monster. He actually wants to destroy Monster High. Komos' body begins to grow and transform into a monstrous creature. The man explains that Hyde created the potion to take revenge on everyone who ruined his life. He then casts a spell on Draculaura, turning her into a bat and revealing that he has also stolen her powers. Now he plans to destroy the school and then take revenge on humans, whom he considers the true enemies of his father. At that moment, Frankie mixes two substances and causes an explosion that hits the monster. The girls take the opportunity to escape from the laboratory, but when they close the door, they discover that the entrance to the tomb has also closed. Since no one can get out, Frankie uses her phone to call for help. The only person who can help them is Cleo, so they make a video call and warn her about Professor Komos's true identity. Meanwhile, during the annual dinner, the principal becomes furious because Claudine still has not arrived. At the same time, Deuce receives a call from Cleo, who tells him that Claudine is in danger at the cemetery. Draculaura then uses the Gathered Mist spell and manages to open the tomb's passageway. Outside, Deuce and several students are waiting to help in the battle. However, Komos manages to escape and threatens the teenagers. Claudine tries to convince him not to destroy the school, but the monster responds by attacking her. Deuce steps in to protect her and uses his hypnotic gaze to turn Komos to stone. But the monster absorbs the power and sends the attack back at him, turning Deuce to stone instead. Claudine runs to help her friend, but she becomes so nervous that she transforms back into a human in front of all the students. Suddenly, the tomb's door begins to crack. Claudine takes advantage of the opportunity and runs toward the front of the battle. Komos tries to attack her, but realizes that he cannot turn her to stone because she is now human. So he decides to use his own petrifying gaze. But Claudine comes up with an idea. She takes out her phone and turns on the front-facing camera, causing Komos to see his own eyes reflected on the screen. The plan works. The monster turns to stone, and at the same time, all the students regain their powers. Deuce returns to normal and is shocked to discover that Claudine is human. The next day, Apollo arrives at Monster High to pick up his daughter. Claudine says goodbye to her friends in the main hall, but before she leaves, the principal makes an important decision. She announces that Claudine can stay at the school. After all, the real monster was Professor Komos, so she officially welcomes Claudine as Monster High's first hybrid blood student. In addition, Draculaura's father gives her his own spellbook and tells her that she must work hard to become the greatest witch of all. But while everyone celebrates Claudine's arrival, a mysterious woman watches the scene through a crystal ball. She then reveals that Draculaura could be the key to destroying all vampires.